Bernstein again. Big opening. Pass 5. Pass 10. Vermont's a man. And he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards of the carry.
Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how you doing today?
Every day on the podcast is a holiday, but this is even more special. This is someone who took my Section 1 pretty brutal, fullback ass and turned him into almost an All-American. One of my favorite coaches of all time. I mean, someone who really, the trajectory of Wisconsin and the running back room is where it is today because of this man, and also a great human being. And I just love being around him. Coach Brian White, CBW, the Hammerback creator.
It's a pleasure to be here. Just an absolute pleasure to be here with Bernie and you Believe in your podcast. I can't wait to share some stories that are just this will be a great hour. I can promise you that.
I have zero doubt about that. We're here for all the stories about Bernie, about, what went on in that running back room. Before we get started, want to remind everyone that we are presented by betonline.ag. BetOnline is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, right up through all of the top fights in MMA, UFC, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 slots and other games. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action and use our promo code BELIEVE for 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the game starts here. And we are also proud to be brought to you by Chris Anicetti and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. If you are a current or future professional athlete, get with Chris. He is the guy that you need to get your money right. Get in touch with Chris on Instagram at Chris_Anicetti. That's Chris_ANICETE. Or get in touch with Oak Bridge's team on their website at oakbridgewealthmgmt.com. That's Oak Bridge Wealth Management. Coach, what people may not know is that you are also one of the most learned people to be coaching anywhere in America. You have degrees from Harvard, Fordham, and Notre Dame. I don't think a whole lot of people out there can say that. So before we get into the real stuff here at UW, I want to talk about your path going to Harvard and playing at Harvard, because that is a completely different breed of football. So how did you just get to being a Harvard athlete? Let's get there first.
Well, I still don't know, to be quite perfectly honest with you. My sister went to Harvard. She was 2 years older than me. They recruited me. I was offered a scholarship at Boston College. It was between Boston College and Harvard. BC had this terrible quarterback named Doug Flutie that was a freshman. So I decided, you know what, if I want to play, I should probably go to Harvard. And that's how I ended up at Harvard. I was like the first Prop 48 that Harvard ever admitted. So I had to have all these special interviews. And the last one, the admissions director was asking me these questions about the Iranian hostage crisis. And I knew very little about it, but I kind of faked my way through it, and they accepted me, and I was able to find my way through the university for 4 years. It was a lot of fun.
Matt Perkins, nobody knows this, but I had a picture of Coach White as a quarterback at Harvard in my locker, taped up on my locker, with a bunch of quotes that Coach White gave us, but I had his picture up there in my locker.
That's incredible. Do you remember any of those quotes, Bern?
There was a bunch of them. There were some that I loved. There's there was maybe Joe DiMaggio, like, a kid could be watching you for the first time or the last, so you better get working, or something like that. But I had a bunch of them in there. and they were all from Coach White would give us like packets and stuff, and I would just rip them off and tape them up there if I liked them. But the picture of Coach White was the best because everyone's like, "Who is that?" And I'm like, "That's CB Dub at Harvard." we had like these fun inside jokes, and that was one of mine. I just left it up there. I loved it. So, Coach, so you played at Harvard. What got you into coaching?
Well, I grew up in coaching. My dad was a high school football coach. He played quarterback at Notre Dame. So I grew up on a field in a locker room, and I just knew that the only thing I ever really wanted to do was coach football. And it was something that was in my blood. I couldn't wait for Saturday mornings to listen to my dad's pregame pep talks, and it was an unbelievable childhood. And I said, why would I want to do anything but? And I honestly have felt I'm going into my 39th year of coaching, and I feel like coaching is never been a job for me. It's always been just an avocation and a love, and I've said it millions of times. It was like recess in school when you were a kid. What's your favorite time of the day? Was recess, and that's what coaching is to me. And I'm going on my 39th year, and I'm loving Bowling Green right now, and had some incredible experiences and coached some great football players at Wisconsin and all over the place, Florida, and now I have some wonderful players at Bowling Green that I'm really thoroughly enjoying coaching.
So, Coach, how did you get? You could long story can be short if you want, but how did you get to the running back room at Wisconsin?
Well, good question. Interesting question too, because I was at UNLV at the time, but I'd worked as a graduate assistant at Notre Dame for 2 years. That's where I met Coach Alvarez, and they were looking for a younger coach at that time to coach the running backs. And so Barry flew me in and interviewed, and Brad Childress was the coordinator, and it was an older staff, and I think they just wanted some younger blood on the staff, and I was not the favorite choice of the assistant coaches, but Coach Alvarez made the ultimate decision, and I was very fortunate that he saw the merits in me and the energy that I could bring as a young coach, and I think it paid off. I think it was a very good marriage for 11 years.
I would say that energy is something that's very special, Coach. I mean, you bring the energy, you bring the funny, verbiage. Is that just part of you? The energy is just part of just who you are?
I think I grew up my mom was a lifelong teacher, and she has incredible energy. And my dad was just always an upbeat guy as a coach. And I just always felt like that's the way you should coach, with great energy, passion, and make it fun. I always tried to make it fun, and I think I still do that. And some of the sayings that you guys will remember: don't be a Pop-Tart.
We still say it to this day.
Oh, I got some Pop-Tart backs right now that I'm working with right now. So I have my box of Pop-Tarts. Whenever they have a Pop-Tart run, I'll say, what do you want? Cinnamon, brown sugar, cinnamon, blueberry, strawberry. Which one do you want? S'mores. They got all these different flavors out nowadays. So.
Oh, that's so good. Well, they brought you in, and one of your first things you had to do was go recruit a guy out of New Jersey who's a little bit bigger than most of the backs that we've seen outside of Bernie. Talk about recruiting and bringing in Ron Dayne, because when that was one of the, he would have been like a junior, I think, when they brought you in, and he had been one of Coach Alvarez's targets. How did you get to know Ron, and how did you convince Ron to attend UW?
Well, a couple things. There was a legendary recruiter at Wisconsin that when I got hired, he was still on staff, Bernie Wyatt. He recruited the East Coast, and the Iowa Rose Bowl team in the 80s, he had like 19 of the 22 starters he recruited. And the first Rose Bowl team at Wisconsin, he recruited, Lee DeRamus and a bunch of guys that played on that Rose Bowl team. So he was the primary recruiter. I was the position coach. So we tag team Ron, but it was Bernie's really connections that drove the New York, New England, East Coast recruiting. And so I went out and saw Ron in the spring throw the discus, and it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. He threw the 223 feet. I think it was the longest discus throw in high school history at the time, and I don't know if it's been broken, but it was amazing to see the coordinated explosion that he had, and he was 270 pounds. And I just told him, I said afterwards, I said, you can play tailback for us now. A lot of people were recruiting him as a fullback, and I said, you can be a tailback from day one. I'm going to recruit you as a tailback. And he was just, it was amazing how he was like a ballet dancer running the football. It was just the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And first practice I had with him, I just do a little simple drill. Bernie remembers it. I just have the running backs run at me. I lean to the left. You're supposed to cut away from me, and I want to see you make a full speed cut. Well, Ron's running right at me. I lean to the left, and he runs to the left. He runs right. I thought my life was gonna end right there, and he still was able to redirect and avoid hitting me and killing me. And Barry was watching it, and I just looked at him. I said, "We got one here." It was pretty amazing, pretty special, and he didn't disappoint.
So you knew from that moment that Ron Dayne was special. Do you think in your head, like at any point, we're going to create something here that's going to be special forever? I mean, Wisconsin's running back room to date is still considered RBU because of what you created all those years ago. Do you ever think, like, do you ever watch TV and go, man, they consider this like the best running back school or one of them because of what I built?
Well, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of being at Wisconsin for those 11 years and having some incredible running backs, both fullbacks and tailbacks that just really played at a high level and were really good dudes and fun to coach. And you went to work every day knowing that you were coaching outstanding people that were going to be successful in life with or without football. That was the beautiful thing, and to maintain so many relationships with the players has been really fun and very 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 rewarding.
Wait, didn't you just see Chad Coons? His kid was at a camp.
Just saw him last week. Yeah, Chad came and he obviously replaced you, or he was before you.
Yep. And
you replaced him, and he looks great, and his son's a great kid and a talented guy, and it's just to see people being really good husbands and fathers and raising families, and it makes what you do very, very, very gratifying.
And to know that you had such a tremendous impact on so many people, it's so cool. Listen, it's a tremendous impact on me. Coach White, I was horrible when I showed up at camp at seminary, and you just had patience and you worked with me over and over and over again. And one of my favorite, I tell this to everyone, we were doing like a bob. I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm down in a 3-point stance and I look back, I'm like, Coach White, I don't know who to hit. And you go, I'll save the call for language. You're like, hit Greisen. Nick Greisen right there, number 45. And all of a sudden, Nick Greison's smiling. And I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. But you had that patience to coach people, let them kind of work into their skill set. I think that was very outstanding of you.
Yeah, well, one of the great quotes that I got from Coach Holtz when I was working with Coach Holtz at Notre Dame was, coaching is the constant conditioning of correct behavior. But the first thing is, as a coach, you have to know what the correct behavior is. And I've been blessed by being around really good coaches at an early age in my career that provided me with a tremendous fundamental foundation for coaching. And honestly, Bernie, I'm coaching the same stuff right now, 19 years after I coached you last year in 2005, because it works. And it is the constant conditioning of correct behavior. That's why, which I know we'll talk about, you were able to go and play in the Penn State game and create one of the most incredible moments in Badger football history, and just completely energize a stadium because you were constantly conditioned with correct behavior, and you didn't flinch. I mean, I'll never forget, not to get off on a bad topic, but we're at halftime of that game, and Booker Stanley's down. Anthony Davis didn't play in the game. Booker's down. Jamil Walker's down. I don't even know who else we had, Bernie. Were there any other tailbacks?
Wayne Smith was out because of his heart issue.
Wayne Smith was out.
Presley was not ready.
Who?
Chris Presley just wasn't ready yet.
Chris Presley was a fullback, and he wasn't ready. He was a freshman. And so we're at halftime, and Barry said to me, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, we're going to play Bernie Bernie will play tailback, and Greg Root will play fullback." He goes, "What are you smoking? We can't do that." I said, "Coach, Bernie knows all the plays. He knows all the footwork. We do it an individual every day. He'll be fine." He goes, "Yeah, but Greg Root blocking at fullback? I mean, he's not going to be able to block at fullback." I said, he's tough as shit. He'll be just fine." And he goes, "Okay." I said, "We don't have any other alternatives." I said, "Coach, they'll be fine." And they put on a performance. I mean, Bernie jumping over people, hurdling over people, Greg Root smashing linebackers and defensive ends. It was really a magical night. And you know what? It's one of the most memorable nights of my coaching career because of just what we talked about, of believing in players. And when you get your opportunity, you go and you make the most of it. I mean, Bernie had been living for an opportunity like that his whole career. And to see what he did, the energy of the crowd was unbelievable. It was just absolutely magical. And it's a night that I will never forget as a player, let alone all the issues with his religion and not being able to eat. What was it? Yom Kippur?
Yep.
So the game's starting at 5:45 at night. I know I ordered a bunch of food from Mickey's Dairy Bar for you. What'd you order?
Well, at 4:45, I only had turkey and orange slices. But there were some hoagies. At halftime, I was just eating as much as I could. But I was just drinking also a ton of Gatorade. But you guys were great. You know, something that I took something that makes me feel good is you guys were like, okay, what do you need? And you and Coach Alvarez, I remember this conversation, and I was like, I got to eat by 4:30 the day before. I'm not warming up with the team. I'm not doing anything. And you guys were like, okay. And it's so not the norm. You know, I never thought that would be, I thought there'd be a little bit more back and forth, maybe a negotiation, like you got to warm up. It's not safe. But you guys were great. You're like, no, well, whatever you need, we'll do. And that was really special to me because this is a big day and the game got switched because it was an 11 o'clock game. And I was like, well, I can play now if I have these things. And you and Coach Alvarez were like, sure, whatever you want. And I just remember you walked into our locker room and go, Bernie, you're in, man. And I'm like, Coach, we suck. I suck right now. Like, I'm in. What do you mean? And you're like, no, tailback. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Let's go. And I went to Greg Root. I'm like, Greg Root, dude, you're in. Let's do this. I changed my shoes to my faster cleats because I don't know why I thought I had faster cleats. And then, Coach, you talk about energizing the room. Clinkscale came up to me right away and goes, just follow me the whole time. And I was like, all right. And, you know, just that first play, that counter, we got 13 yards. Greg picked up the guy. Clinkscale knocked the cornerback on his ass.
Yeah.
You could see even Alvey smiled, and like he did not a smile type of guy on a game day. I think from that point on, like, yeah, the O-line, everyone made plays. B. White made plays. Like everyone around kind of came together in that game.
It was. Well, here's a funny thing about Greg, too. I've never told him this, but when he was a freshman, right before we were traveling to go for a game, Barry saw him walking into the locker room, and I guess he was smoking some Black and Milds. So Coach Alvarez came up to me and said, he goes, "Hey, can you tell your new fullback that I'd appreciate it if he didn't walk into the facility smoking a Black and Mild before he enters the facility?" I go, I'll have a little conversation with him.
Greg was a very interesting guy. I'll tell you one, because I want to stay on interesting people, because Coach White, you've coached a lot of them. And in that room was very interesting when I first got there. But here's what I will say about Greg Root. That guy played minimal snaps, right? He hardly played. Coach White, the one play that I hurdled that guy going towards the student section, they had a stunt on. And this is like, you only learn it from maybe individual one time, or you learn it from watching film. And, the D end and the lineman stunted in, they slanted in, and the linebacker blitzed outside. And this is a play I've messed up in the past. And Greg picked that stunt up, because on Bob, you pick up the blitzing guy. Right. The hole was wide open. Greg, to know that, to me, means that you're coaching even on guys who are 2-3 deep. I mean, look, Presley was 3 deep, and he became one of the best fullbacks Wisconsin's produced in a long time. Yeah. Guys I think your coaching ability is just what gets guys to be able to their full potential. I mean, I reached my full potential. There is no way I didn't. Greg did. I mean, you're talking about everyone. AD, I think everyone reached their full potential.
Yeah, well, that's the whole goal as a coach, is to get people to reach their genetic ceiling. And whatever your genetic ceiling is, that's what you want to go hit your head on. But just to go back to Greg Root, the one thing I can tell you about Greg Root is, as loyal as the day is long, and just he's like a piece of gristle, just tough dude. And so I honestly didn't have any reservations about him playing against Penn State, and he answered the bell, and you did the same thing, and it was really magical.
Wait, Coach, so I have to bring this up because I think it's actually really funny. It used to do questionnaires about the team. Who do you hang out with? What do you like to do? Do you like what movies you like? Stuff like that. Yeah. The best question: who do you want in a dark alley?
I love that.
It's a great question. Because it really tells you who the monsters are who are doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing. But one time you had me and Greg in the office, and you're like, "Guys, everyone voted for you two. Is there something I should know about what you're doing at night?" And I was like, "No, I voted for Greg." Greg's like, "Well, I voted for you." I just think it was a funny questionnaire question.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite questions, because, and I would do that in right when you got back from January break, because I wanted to find out who the tough guys on the team were, who everyone trusted, and who the leaders were. And after a week's worth of conversations with everybody, every player that came in, and I'd also asked them, one of the questions I liked was, if you were to start a business today with all your own money, who are you going to hire on the team and why? So what you find out is, the guys that you hang out with, you're not necessarily hiring, or you don't want them in the dark alley, because if you're going to survive, you're going to get the guys that are going to get you out of that dark alley. If you have your own business and you're investing your own money, you're going to invest in the people that you know are going to win for you, and produce and bring money into the organization, and productivity. And it was just fascinating, because people are honest too. I mean, they tell you who they really trust, who they really want to be in a dark alley with to get you out of there. And I loved that. Was as fun a week for me of the year in terms of building a team. That's how you build football teams. And I'm glad that you remembered some of those questions, because I enjoyed that so much and thought it was so important to gather that information. Number one, to hear players' stories too. You don't know so many times. You don't know that much about your players, what's going on with at home and their family, and you just get them to talk. I mean, it's not real complicated. And in football and building chemistry isn't real complicated if you just provide the human touch and you get people to really enjoy being around you and enjoy what they're doing.
So to pivot on, well, to piggyback onto the fighting in the dark alley thing. After the Alamo Bowl, Coach, you might remember this, you might not. Somehow there was a big brawl after that night after the game, and Coach Horton caught me running back into the fight to punch somebody in the face who had my brother in a headlock, and he caught me, and his wife was there too. Do you remember this? Like, I never got in trouble for it, which was great. But do you remember, was there any conversation about, like, I caught this animal on the street trying to brawl with people?
Actually, no. Coach Horton and I are like best friends, so he let me in on it, but he didn't want to make it a big deal. So he told me the whole story, and it was hilarious. Hilarious once I knew that everyone was safe.
Sure, totally.
But when you talked about your brother, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you talk about blood and trying to create blood. That's your actual blood brother. That's what you're trying to do on a football team, is create a brotherhood and to create that blood that lasts a lifetime. And I know you have great teammates that you've stayed in phenomenal contact with, and it's a brotherhood that you share and are never going to lose, and it's really awesome, particularly with the success that the program's had. I mean, when you think about what Coach Alvarez built from 1990 to this present day, it's really remarkable. And there's tremendous pride that everyone has when you're a Wisconsin football player. I know you have great pride, and particularly if you're a running back. I mean, because running back and O-line around the country, everybody talks about running backs and O-linemen. The best in the country are Badgers. And you can historically, for the past 30-something years, you can define it and translate it and see it, and it's really cool. So it's great to be a part of.
You just mentioned, like, you still think about, I'm sure you still think about that and think about sort of the role that you had in creating RBU. Like, when you were both recruiting guys and once you had them in the program, like, what were you trying to do to create that culture, to create that attitude, create that sort of feeling that, yes, we are RBU? Or did you even realize that in the time, or did it just kind of just happen?
I think it just kind of happened. I think what we really wanted to do was recruit high quality young men that were first of all loved football and were tough and unselfish guys. I mean, to play fullback, you have to be an unselfish guy. I mean, that's probably the worst position in the history of college football. Here's your job description: run as fast as you can. You're 5 yards. There's a 10-yard separation between you and the person you're blocking, and go slam your head into the wall, and do that for 60 minutes. Or come back on a zone play and cut off a defensive end who's 270 pounds and is closing the gap on you, and you have to go stick your face in there to create a gap for a tailback to run through. Or how about what Marcus Carpenter termed as 122 slide jar? He nicknamed it 122 concussion. That you take a slide step and you run 100-yard dash through a linebacker's face. I mean, it's not exactly an appealing job.
You make it sound not appealing. You can get the ball maybe, and sometimes you get a pass thrown your way.
Occasionally you'll get a pass thrown to you, Occasionally we'll hand you off a belly, but your job description is to smash linebackers, defensive ends all day long. And after 4 years, you can see during practice, the young guys, what I would do is I'd always give the young guys more reps because I wanted to save the hits on the older guys. Because I wanted them they knew how to do it. So I wanted to make sure that they were fresh for the game. But not a fun job description.
Well, Coach, I want to go back for 1 second because I think one of the coolest things ever is that Ron Dayne attended the University of Wisconsin and that you had such an influential. What's it like to coach a Heisman Trophy winner? Must be, record setter. Somebody's lucky they beat his record, but like how cool. And also how cool is that day at Camp Randall with the towels? Like, to me, that's the visual I see every time I think of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was really cool to coach Ron and develop him and really feel like you made an impact on his development from day one as a freshman, and to get him from scratch and be able to create a Heisman Trophy winner or contribute to it was really special, and it's something that I'll be very proud of. But that moment in Camp Randall Stadium was just absolutely magical. The whole day, 99 yards he needed to break the record, and it was against Iowa, and the Rose Bowl was on the line, and this was Kirk Ferentz's first year, so Iowa was struggling, but you still had to go do it, and you still had to run for 99 yards, and Iowa defensively was solid, and it was just a magical day and night, and I'll never forget. I was going for a jog. This is when I knew that I was a really lucky person. I was going for a jog before the game in the morning, and I was just thinking about the game, and I wasn't concentrating on my run. And I was running across the street down by State Street, not even thinking. I don't know how this car avoided me, but this car avoided me, and I'm like going, it's going to be a good day because I should have been dead. And Ron, it was just such a unique day, and it was really cool. I mean, it's a great memory, and I'm awfully proud of it.
Well, I got to say, I think opponents trying to tackle Ron on that turf at Camp Randall in 1997, 1998, where that just seemed so painful because that turf was not the best surface to play on, was it?
No, that was a very hard surface, and it was like concrete. And then we put in the good turf. I don't know exactly when, but it was after Ron, I think, and
it was after AD always made a joke because remember when Lee jumped up for a ball and came down and Johnny Sylvain got tangled in a spring game. AD always joked we changed the turf for you, Lee. So it was in 2003 we played on the different turf. No, I remember because I watch film all the time because I just love it. There was no Wisconsin in the end zones. They were just checkered or slashed because they didn't have enough time.
Well, let me tell you that when Lee got hurt that spring game, you could hear a pin drop. I mean, that was just such a you knew your season was going to be impacted right there. And he went up for a ball. He was only going to play 8 plays in the spring game because back then spring games were important for the fans to see the players and da-da-da-da-da. And so we said 8 plays, and then play number 7, he goes up way up in the air and he gets upended and blows his knee out. And I'm going, the season's going to be different. When you lose a player of that caliber, it's going to be different, and it was.
Well, Coach, that season still ended up being not bad because you had a certain someone in the backfield who we're going to have join us right now. Anthony Davis.
Oh.
What's up, AD?
Coach.
Dr. Davis.
Yeah, man. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Doing
It's
great.
good to see you, man. Very good to see you.
Great to see you. Really proud of you, man.
I appreciate that. Bernie, Perk, what's up, man?
What's up, Diesel?
Not
Always
much.
good to see you, man.
Likewise, brother. Likewise.
Dude,
man.
thanks for jumping on. Dude, I want to just jump
Paradise.
right in. AD remembers more stories than I think. First of all, AD's one of the smartest people I've ever been around. But Coach, we got to jump in. AD, we mentioned the seminary and how just utterly brutal it was. But when I first got there, how interesting the room was, because you had I was saying some of the most interesting human beings, and there's one particular. Actually, there were two in that room who were just wacko. Train, and then you had and Russ Coons. Train, I mean, he was. But Coach, what's it like to coach Chad Coons, who's like one of the most normal, like doesn't say much guy, and then you have on the flip side Russ Coons, who might be one of the craziest dudes I've ever known.
How they came from the same parents, I have no idea, because I mean, Russ was wild, and he was a blast to coach, but he was totally delusional, completely delusional about his ability, about everything. But he was so fun to coach, and he was tough too.
Oh man.
But you know, the Train, not to digress, but the Train was hilarious, because the year that Ron won the Heisman, we were recruiting him, and his nickname was the Train, and he was on his official visit, and he kept on saying, "Out with the Dane, in with the Train, choo choo! Out with the Dane, in with the Train, choo choo!" All weekend, I'm like going, this guy is nuts, and he comes and he was nuts.
Hey, I got it. Do you have any funny stories from camp outside? I mean, my favorite one of all time is when Russ scared Coach White when he was holding the big thing of gumballs.
So I got a couple of funny ones, man. Talking about Train was really funny because he wore number 24, and Mike B wore number 29, right? And so I think we were all red. Matter of fact, we were first years, so. Coach drew up a play where Mike B motioned out wide and ran a straight 9 route against Fletch. And I think it was just, we were all anxious to see how he was going to run by Fletch, right? Because Fletch was an All-American corner, but Mike B had All-American speed. So we're in the meeting room in camp, and Coach was complimenting Mike B blew by him, what we all expected. And Train actually thought it was him. So we're all like... So Train is like, yeah, you didn't think Train had speed. And like everyone's laughing it off because we didn't think he was serious, right? We're like, man, this Train is crazy. He's just joking around. And Coach was basically like, look, he's like, Teron, that's not you. Yeah, it is. That is Train. And I'm like, yo, he's serious. He really thinks that was him out there that blew by Jamar Fletcher, the All-American cornerback. And I'm just sitting here dying laughing about watching him and Coach go back and forth. And Coach just kind of shook his head and was like, it's not you, Teron. It's not you, Train. And I'm just sitting here laughing. That was hilarious to me. The other thing was, man, when Coach before Coach got to the meeting room, I'll give a Russ story too. So Russ used to get to the meeting room before the rest of us, and he would find a play where he thought he just like crushed somebody. And he would purposely put the film on that play. It could be 6 plays into the sequence. And he would purposely start the sequence there so that when Coach got to the room, it would start on the play where he thinks he crushed somebody. But his form would be bad. And so he would think that Coach is just going to give him this, like, all this praise. And Coach would just light him up. Like, you're going to kill yourself, Russ. You got to shoot your hands through the face mask. And Russ would like lead with his head, and you see his head jerk back. And I'm like, you're going to break your neck, Russ. And we just being there dying laughing because it just totally didn't go the way Russ thought it was going to go, right? He thought we were going to start watch an inside film off with him just blowing somebody up. And that just used to be hilarious to me.
Oh, God. How about Sean O'Reilly?
Oh yeah, Dr. O'Reilly.
Dr. O'Reilly.
Yeah, him. Funny story too is we used to mess with Coach. We would put tape on the bottom of the mouse. I don't know if you ever knew this, Coach, but we would put tape on the bottom of the mouse so you couldn't move the cursor around. And so he would get pissed, and he would go over. He would go over to the because at the time we were right above where the field was, where the McLean is.
Yeah.
He would go over to the other side to get the film crew. Like he would need help, and as soon as he left, he would take the tape off. So when the guy came back to help, he would be all pissed. And when the guy came back to help him, it would just work fine. He would be so bad. Like, I got a Harvard education. You gotta be. You can't tell me I know how to operate a mouse. So that was something we did on a regular. And Russ, of course, would hide behind the doors and jump out and scare.
Oh yeah, he scared the bejesus out of me a couple of times.
Yeah. So just lots of good times in those meeting rooms, man. I swear.
AD, another not at seminary after where it's the end of the season. Coach Wright's like, hey guys, I hope you guys have been keeping up with your academics. Tell me, AD, what are you going to get this semester? AD's like, 3.9. Coach Wright's like, all right, 3.7. He's like, Matt, what are you going to get? I'm like, I think I got 2.7. You're like, all right, 2.5. Greg, you 2.2. Russ Coons is like, I think I'm going to get a 1.5. Coach, you paused, like you looked at him like he had 17 heads, and you just wrote, "You're effed" on the board.
Yeah. Hey, that was hilarious. The grade predictions. Yeah.
Oh, I know. You know what? They were hilarious. Then to see exactly what you got to compare was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I remember that. Bern, what do you think you're going to get? Probably around a 2.7. 2.7, I say 2.4, Russ, what do you think you're going to get? I'm struggling this. I'm saying about a 2.3, Coach. 2.3? Fucked. You know what I mean?
I think, but Russ would literally admit to it. That's what was part of his crazy, was that he would say, like, I'm going to 1.0. Like,
yeah, I remember one time we were doing like pat and go. It's like the first day of camp one time. We're in just helmets. And Brooks throws a pass, and he leads Russ, overthrows Russ. And this guy dove, like I'm talking no equipment on, just helmets, dove to make this beautiful catch and almost killed himself in the process.
Oh, I could see that.
And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Coach said, you're going to kill yourself, man. Take it easy.
He's a piece of work. There were a lot of characters, and it was a lot of fun to go to work every day and be in the meeting room with you guys. The things that I remember as a coach, and the reason why I love to continue to coach are the meeting room and the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
The locker room is sacred space, and it really defines a football team, because the players within the locker room and the coaches make the locker room special. And I've come up with this saying: the locker room's not for sale. I had a friend that worked on Wall Street that wanted to come to a Rose Bowl game. And I got him all the tickets for the game, and they wanted to know if I could get him in the locker room after the game. And I said, no, I'll get you the tickets, but you're not going in the locker room, because the locker room is for the players and the coaches that to enjoy the hard work of a win or consoling one another after a really tough loss. I mean, the locker room, every lesson that you need to be successful in life is in the locker room.
Yep.
And it really is. You learn when to shut up. You learn when to celebrate. You learn when to console someone. Someone just had a tough game, and you know that they feel responsible for the game, even though it's a team game. Then you got to get around them, and then the celebrations, though. The celebrations are they're worth fighting for, and that's what that locker room feeling after a huge win There's nothing like it. There's no other job that can recreate it. You're in business, you make $1 million selling whatever. You're not going to get the euphoria that you get from the locker room, the celebration, singing the fight song with your teammates, and the love that you share and the brotherhood that you have. It's just really, really unique and special, and it's why I continue to coach. It really is to chase that feeling and to help contribute to it, and to feel like you've developed some players. And I got a couple guys that you guys would be proud of. I mean, I got a couple freshmen that, I got one senior he's like you, AD. I mean, like a pinball, hard to tackle. And he what are you, 5'7"?
Yep.
He's like 5'5". He lists himself at 5'9", but he's like 5'5", 5'6". But they can't tackle him. He led the country in broken tackles last year before he got injured.
Sheesh.
He's really unique dude. And then I got two freshmen that are just real guys. So it's fun.
Well, Coach, now that we have AD in the room, what's it like to watch, because I remember when I got there, AD, Pet, Broderick Williams, Train, all were fighting for the job, right? Right, AD? Like that was, you were, I think you were taking 1 or 2 reps. I was going to redshirt. I had no idea what I was doing. But what's it like to watch that battle and to watch people, what do they say now? Like iron sharpens iron. Like, what's it like to watch AD kind of you built him up to be this amazing player. What's it like to see his success throughout his career in Wisconsin? Well,
it was really special to me because honestly, this is how much we know as coaches. I mean, AD will tell you. I mean, I had no idea going into that Virginia game. I had no idea who would separate themselves during that game. I mean, I think Jerome started the game, didn't he?
He did. Got the first touchdown, yeah.
Yeah. And Jerome's a great guy. But this is how much you know as coaches. Until you actually play the games and see it unfold, you really don't know, because practice is so scripted that you think you have an idea, but you don't have actual evidence until they play the game. And we played Virginia, and AD, what did you have, 151 yards or something?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is different. You know, no disrespect to Jerome, because Jerome was a good player, but it was just different, and he made it different, and so it was really. I mean, I'll be honest with you. His freshman year, we redshirted him. I mean, Coach Alvarez said, "Well, we made a mistake on AD," you know, because he was out of control. He didn't know how to control his speed. I think one of the things that he was able to understand through what we talked about earlier, the constant conditioning of correct behavior, is he really started to understand how to control his body, and then he just became this magical back that you know, people couldn't tackle. And he had elite speed and just a great dude. But for me to look you in the eye and say I knew that, that's a freaking lie. That's a lie. He earned it because he did it on the field, and that's how it all happened.
Coach, what did you used to say to AD a lot? No, don't make these jump cuts in space, AD.
All the time.
All the time. But Coach, I would say AD had the best jump cut I think I've ever seen.
One of the best I've ever coached. I mean, he could make a jump. He could jump cut through 2 or 3 gaps. Which was incredible, and great vertical acceleration, and what he really became unbelievable at is making the jump cut and then getting vertical as fast as you can, and outrunning people, and
Dude, the coolest run ever is at Oregon, AD, that year in 2002. Out of the shotgun, made that one jump cut, and you were gone, dude. There wasn't anyone around you. I mean, that was
the read zone. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was special.
Coach, I got a quick question though for you. You went from coaching Ron Dayne to coaching then back to back, having Michael Bennett, Anthony Davis, and Brian Calhoun, all of whom were complete opposites of Ron Dayne in terms of style. How did you adjust?
Honestly, I mean, like I said, the whole key to football coaching is the constant conditioning of correct behavior, and they're all different, but the similarity was they all have great lower body explosion. All of them were 500-pound 500-pound squat guys. They all had incredible lower bodies. So my job as a coach is to be able to condition their lower bodies so that they can. Michael Bennett was probably the hardest one because he was a 10-1 100-meter guy. So when you're running, your feet are together when you're sprinting. Well, a great football player like Barry Sanders and AD did this. Their feet are like this in traffic. They have a great base and they have great foundation so that they can break tackles and they can control their speed. And that was the hardest thing I had to do to teach Michael and AD. But they learned it and they grew from it. And Brian Calhoun was, he was similar to those guys as well.
I mean, he was a 10-2 guy himself.
Yeah, he had great speed and great ball skills, and they're all special athletes. And the most important thing was they knew how to accept coaching and grew from it.
Coach, if you said that you made a mistake with AD, you must have been in the background somewhere saying, "Oh man, Matt Bernstein's going to be horrible here." What? Because AD, you must have been thinking the same thing. I had no idea what was going on for the whole first year.
So Bernie, the truth shall set you free, right? So I got to tell you this. I've never told you this story. This is going to be a shock to you in Badger Nation, but this is the absolute truth. Your coach who loves you, who's talking to you right now, absolutely was in a shouting match with John Palermo not to recruit you. And I said, JP said, "We're taking this guy. I'll take him as a D lineman, but he's going to be a great fullback for you." And we're in a meeting, and I'm like, flip you. I'll make my own decisions. I know what a good running back looks like. I know what a good fullback looks like. And JP was the assistant head coach and one of the strongest personalities ever, and one of my best friends. Yeah. He said, "Well, we're taking this mother flipper, and he's going to be a great player." So John Palermo was right, and I'm thankful because obviously you're one of the best players I've ever coached, and had more fun coaching than anybody. But that's a true story.
I wish you told me this before, because I've had this thought about JP. All he does is yell at me all day. And now 20 years later, I'm like, wow, this guy came to my aid? He's one of the reasons? Oh, man, I got to shift my whole mentality about this dude, Coach.
That's a true story, as true as the day is.
Something nice about humor.
Hey, let me jump in. I will say this, man. What's interesting, because JP, who used to run the scout team, was helpful for me too, right? Like, he started talking to Hughes like, "Hey, you better take a second look at this guy." Because I was starting to do well on the scout team.
I know.
And Hughes came and talked to me one day, said, "Hey, man, I don't know what you did to the D-line coach, but he seems to think that you can be a really good player for us." And I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to that. You know what I mean?
I loved the one time in practice, AD, when I'll never forget it. You missed a cut, and Hughes starts yelling at you because he was the run game coordinator. He goes, "AD, run the ball right over there, over that hole, the hole that's as big as my ass." And you guys can all see how big my ass is. He goes, "How could you miss that cut?" I was laughing. He goes, "You must be a blind man."
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, the success of the Wisconsin Badgers, in my opinion, obviously Coach Alvarez was a great leader and a great football coach and a great delegator and unbelievable head coach. But the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach were the two best in the country, in Jim Huber and John Palermo. And that's where you build a football team. And we had great offensive lines and we had great defensive lines, and everything worked off of that. And those two were best friends, and they would walk out to practice together. They would walk out to games together. But honestly, they don't get enough credit for truly building the toughness that has become the trademark of the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, they really were tough guys, and their players were tough, and they played at a very, very high level. I mean, I know you guys know that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Coach, I could ask you a million questions. We only got a couple minutes left here, but I don't know. I want to hear more from about the room.
I got one more. This is my favorite. AD was one of the best players I've ever played with. I think in that room we had some of the best athletic dudes ever. Coach White, there was one during individual drill. There was one drill nobody got right ever. Do you remember that drill? It was the most hated drill, and it wasn't really hard. When you had to cut the cut drill. Every single time Coach White's like, dude, your hips, you got no hips. Hey, do you remember like we'd have to cut the bag? And nobody did it right. Not one person, over and over and over again. Yeah. And we're like, throw the flipper. And he was like, wrong. And you're like, oh, man, this is the worst drill ever. And we hardly cut people, too. So it's kind of funny. But I just figure, Coach, I love the, like, individual it was always fun. Even though practice really sucked, we had a good time during that suck, I would say. Like, we made jokes. You kept it light and airy. We made fun of people, but we knew people could take it. But I remember we used to mess with Lucas too, AD. We used to get Coach White a lot. We used to put the cone drill in you remember you got the big garbage bags? And we'd hide the cones. And you'd be like, Lucas, it's right here on the sheet, the cut drill. Where are the cones? And Lucas would be like, I have no idea, because he was out doing all the special team stuff. He would just look at AD every time.
Too funny, man. I definitely remember that. I mean, just lots of good times in that meeting room. And I catch myself saying stuff to my kids sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a Coach White quote. Told him not to be a robot.
That was another good one. Don't be a robot.
Don't be a robot. I used to be like, man, this, just the enthusiasm Coach had used to always, I really appreciate it. I didn't always appreciate it at the time, because I'm like, man, it's 6 a.m. Why is this man singing Billy, Don't Be a Hero? Like, everybody is sore and cramping. I want to hear this shit, man. But, I appreciate it. Just hindsight, man, just having a good coach and one that also, values things beyond, football. I always felt like you wanted us to be good guys, and that was really important, man. I remember Coach had kicked me out of a practice one time because I had a review session for a class. And he was like, didn't you say you had an exam in a couple of days? I said, yeah. And he said, and when's the review session? I said, it's happening in about 45 minutes. He told me to get the hell out of here, go study and do well on your exam. And I'm like, man, I was like, what? Okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go do it. But I really appreciated that, and never really always kind of took school seriously. And so just definitely appreciate being able to do that, because I know that wasn't everyone's experience with their coach at times, right? Like, coaches had different styles. So I definitely appreciated that about you, Coach.
Well, thank you. And that was important.
Yeah.
I loved seeing you guys. Like, right now, I'm a really proud coach right now. And I'm getting a little emotional.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'll tell you, like, AD is, I consider him my brother because of you. Like, you really built that love. And to hear that, listen, when I came in, I remember being like, man, I don't know if I belong here. I literally suck at football. And that whole year, and then getting my ass kicked on the scout team. But then, Coach, you don't even know. I came up to you and I go, Coach, I need help, man. I don't know the place. And you're like, come in every day. So every day you set up I would come in for like, I do one play a day, and it was like 24, 25 Bob. And I just watched that on over and over and over. And you'd sit for 5 minutes and go, this is what you do. And just watch clip after clip after clip. And then it was zone, and then it was power, and it was all these handoff. It was all those plays. And I just came in, and you're like, watch these things. And then I remember during spring ball, I came out there, whole new man. I had this confidence. I was working out. Yeah. You know, AD never dinged me for literally sucking and being the next guy to like be. So like, I remember I hit BJ Tucker once. He flew up in the air. He didn't go down. He like caught himself. And you ran up to me high-fiving. We were like going bananas. And that spring ball, I think probably for you, but for everyone, I was like, man, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I think it was your tutelage and taking the time when I was like, dude, I need this help. That made me like take that whole next step. Yeah, I don't think I had a good 2002 season, but I was better than what I was at camp that year. And I would say that's because of you. And then the second AD touched the ball, I just never wanted my guy to put a hand on him. And I think you build that brotherhood. You're like, no, I'm eliminating my guy out of this because of the love that you made me build for AD. And I think that's what you talked about, the locker room and then, you know, the meeting room and just having a good time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I tell everyone that you took that time to create the Hebrew Hangover. It wasn't, I was not even like a little chisel when I first showed up. I wasn't even a tool.
Well, you were a tool, just in a different way, Bern.
A waste of a toolbox space.
Man,
yeah.
Well, listen, I know Bernie's got a meeting, so we got to wrap up. But Coach, it has been an honor, and we've had at least a half a dozen of your backs on this show before, and I can say that every single one of them has, just had reverence for you and for what you've done in their lives. And it's been an honor for me just to listen to all the stories and to finally get to meet you and have you on the podcast here today. And I think it's a testament that, AD will take 30 minutes out of his incredibly busy schedule to hop on and talk. And I know BC wanted to be here too. And it's a real honor to have you, Coach. So thank you so much for taking the hour.
Well, thank you. It's really been a pleasure. And I thank Bernie and AD. You guys are awesome. You made my day.
Yeah, good to see you, Coach. Man, it's always good. Always a pleasure, man.
Coach, honestly, I could not love somebody more. Greg Root sent me a text. He says, ask Coach when he said ending practice 2 plays early when he decleated Brandon Kelly on a 27 power. It's amazing what people remember of you. And I think, there's a lot of positive, even though I know we got to go, but the suffering at camp was at a high level, and you were suffering just as much as we were. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. AD, one of my favorite things was Coach White's hamburgers.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
The burgers and the mac and cheese at the house? Yeah, giant burgers. I remember that.
Burgers. Bring them all home, bring them to everyone. I was like, these aren't going to the linemen. Like, I'm going to eat these tomorrow. I don't have any money.
Yeah,
Coach White, you shared
3 or 4 of them. Yeah,
it's also actually really cool to watch your kids grow up. Cassie and Jackson.
Yeah, they're both getting married Jackson's getting married on Sunday, and Cassie's getting married the very next week. And
Jesus.
And I know I sent you some pictures, but it was at one of the bowl games. You were throwing them around in the pool. It was just really cool. It's just.
Dang.
Awesome. And Cassie's what? It's got to be 25,
27, and she's marrying a guy who's a wide receiver coach for the Seattle Seahawks, Tyson Prince, and Jackson's coaching at North Carolina State.
Wow.
So, and he's marrying a gal from the Smoky Mountains, and it's all good.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
that's crazy. It's so cool to watch your kids grow up on Facebook. Like, it's bananas.
Yeah.
They were so little, and now they're so big. That's all those cheeseburgers.
All right. Well, we got to wrap it up here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.